Hello everyone, this week we will be talking about email and social media investigations. So we will see what are the different artifacts that we can explore when we are investigating emails. And if you guys are interested, you can read the chapter number 11 in the course book. So this is the outline. So we'll mainly talk about emails, how they work, what are the different ways in which people are affected by criminal cases related to emails. So phishing scams, spoofing scams, email frauds, and so on. So we will see like how they work and what or how we can do the forensic analysis in cases related to these different type of attacks. Also, at the very end, we will be briefly touching about the social media analysis that what are the different things in which social media is being abused and what we can recover or how we can analyze cases related to the social media. So let's start with a brief history of the emails, like what the emails are. So all of you guys know, back in time, we used to send people, we used to send pigeons, and we used to send, post service, or used to have post service that use like different various type of animals, horses, and so on. So over the time, those things have replaced, and now these days we have SMS, mobile phone, mobile services, and we have another thing which we call the emails. So what is an email? Email is basically a communication, long distance communication between the two parties over the internet. And it's been there over, since the start of the internet. Couple of decades ago, we have been seeing a lot of use of emails as well. But emails, they, even though they are primary source of communication these days, like all or most of the official communication is done using emails, they can also be used for malicious purposes or bad purposes. Some of the examples are the emails can be forged. So all the communication that we are doing, it can be, like edited, and it can be changed in order to, achieve some bad goals. The emails themselves, they can also be used to abuse people. So one example is spam. So you can keep sending emails, to different or various users, and try to spam them, try to irritate them. Emails can also aid in committing crime as well. For example, you might kidnap somebody, and then in order to request for ransom, you can send email to their friends and family. Emails can also be used for threatening people. So you might see, like a couple of people like getting threatening emails or harassment on email and so on. So we will see like what are the bad, cases, or what are the three different type of attacks or circumstances in which emails can be used for bad intention. So first, let's try to see the relationship of emails to crimes. So the emails can have direct criminal activities, or they can be used for direct criminal activities such as stealing information. You can directly send a phishing email to somebody and steal their credentials. You can also use email for fraud and extortion. So you can send, like fraudulent emails to different users on the internet and try to fraud them, get some money from them, or, like Nigerian princesses and all the other scams that you see over the internet. They all are can be done using the emails. Similarly, they can also be used for extortion. So you can send threatening emails to different individuals, where you can say, I have your personal information, and if you don't give me this much money, I will make it public or share it with your friends and family. So these are the direct activities, or you can say the direct communication or use of emails for crimes. Emails can also be investigated as part of evidence of some other crime. So for example, if somebody is, like running a drug racket, and they are like doing their communication around the emails or using the emails, then in those cases we can use or look at the email artifacts that are there on the system, and they might give us hints of that some other crimes, like for example drug sales, or say child pornography exchanges or sales, and so on. So depending on the nature, they can be directly related to or directly used in a crime, such as the fraud, stealing information, phishing, spoofing, all these scams, or they can be also used as like, or they all can also be investigated as a side evidence for in order to prove some other other crime that might have taken place. So the next thing is what information can or should we examine when we are looking at the emails or when we are examining the emails. So what about the communication? So the first thing that we should be looking at is the communication, right? So if we just look at the content of the email, like what is being said in the email, then that thing can, help us a lot in setting that or in, going into the right direction. So just based on the content of the email, we can figure out whether it is, like being used to directly, abuse somebody or extort money from somebody, or if the tone or the writing is such that it might look fraudulent, it might, look like a phishing scam that the person is saying, you might one day receive an email from some company saying you have won a lottery and, like fill this form to receive your 100 million or $10 million, right? So the content of the email, what's written in the email, including the attachments, or like if there is any link given to a third party and all of that will be very useful when we are investigating the email. The next thing is we need to know where is this email coming from, or the sender of the email. We need to know to whom this email is directed to, or the receiver of the email. We need to know like at what times the email was sent, what time the email was received, or if there is any other information related to the events. All right. So this can be found in the email header. So if you guys, just open the browser, go to your email, open any of them, you will see that it all the emails, they have a to, a from, subject, if they contain an attachment, the time at which these emails, pop up in your own inbox, and so on. So if we just examine the email header, we will get our answer for all these questions. Lastly, one important thing or most important thing that you need to know when you are investigating an email is the authenticity of the email. So in all of the cases that are related to emails, we have to make sure that the emails that we are working on, or the emails that we present in court as evidence, they are authentic. If an email that we present to court is not authentic, or it has been it is proven that it is forged, then that will be like a big shame for us in court, and it can also throw away our case in court as well. So the authenticity of the emails is one of the most important things that we should be looking at. Sometimes some people might claim that they have received some threats over the email, and later on when you check those emails, you might find that there was no threat, and the person who reported that just crafted or just created those emails just to create a scene. So the authenticity of the emails is very important. So most of the cases, in most of the times, like the email can be your best evidence. So if you just observe the content, it can demonstrate the intent. For example, as I gave you the previous example, if you get an email saying that, hey, you have won the lottery, this is the amount that are you are due, and just like sign up here or fill this form, and you will receive your money. So the content, just by looking at the content of the email, you can figure out that the other person is trying to fish you or scam you and trying to get some information out of you. Similarly, the header data can demonstrate the source. So just like we discussed in the previous slide, that the header, which, or the sender, or from the origin from which this email is coming from, that can be found in the header. Timestamps can also be found in the header as well. So for example, at what time the email showed up in your inbox, and so on. And the emails can also be, like investigated for a lot of other purposes as well. For example, the previous slide, if you guys remember, so they might not have a direct link to a crime, but they can show up as evidence of other crimes, and we would have to investigate those. So in order to investigate the emails, first thing that we need to know is how the emails works, and like what are the different ways in which we can send and receive the email. So the email works basically in two ways. So there are two models that we use to send or receive emails. The first model is called the client server model. So if you guys have Outlook application installed on your PC and you use that in order to send and receive an email, that will lie under or come under the client server application model. So what you have basically is a application or a client, application running on your own machine. Outlook, it could be any other email service provider that might have an application. You go to that application or you run that program, write your email. then that application on your machine sends the email to the server, which will be the Outlook or say, Microsoft email servers. The other is webmail. So, Gmail, Yahoo Mail, these type of things where you just like go to your browser, you type gmail.com, it gives you an interface, a web interface where you can read and write emails. So that lie under the webmail model, where you don't have a client or where you don't have, a local software that runs on your system in order to view or send emails. You directly just go onto the browser and use the email. So both of these systems, like, if it is client server application model or the webmail model, they both have their impact on the investigation. How? If you are using just a webmail, or like you go to a browser and type your email, or whenever you want to receive the email, you just go to browser and look the emails about there will be no evidence of the emails on your own machine. So for example, if I go to Gmail, I can see all my emails that are there in my inbox. I can write emails, send to different people, but everything will stay on the Gmail server. There will be nothing on my own machine. On the other hand, if I am using Outlook's application on my PC to send you guys an email, then there will be evidence, or you can say, remnants of that email on my own machine saved as well as the server. So depending on what type of method or what type of architecture the email service is using, you can either have evidence only on your local machine in case of client server application, or you can have only evidence as the mail servers in case of Gmail, Yahoo Mail, or any other webmail. So the next thing is, where can we find files related or artifacts related to email? So that would depend on what type of model you're using. So localhost, if it is like you're using Outlook's application in order to send or receive emails, or in order to view emails, you can see the data on your local host. If you are using, like just using Gmail, then your data, email data, or email records or artifacts, they will be at receivers, at the, sorry, your mail server, the mail server that you are using, and the recipient's mail server. So when we send an email, I will show you guys in the later slide that how it works. It passes from, different mail servers. So we will look into that. But the second case is that the first is the data can be found on your own machine. The second is it can also be found on the your mail server that you use to send the email, and the recipient's mail server from which the recipient can receive the email. Similarly, network and email logs. So in your machine, as well as the receiver's machine, as well as on all of the mail servers that the mail passes through, those mail servers and these machines, they will keep a log or a record of the emails that are being sent back and forth. Similarly, if you have a backup, or if the intermediary servers, they have backup, your email records can be found on those backup servers as well. So this is a very simplified way or path to explain the working of the email. So just imagine this is you. You write an email on Outlook, that email, and you send it to me, say qasim.gbsu.edu. Now, the first thing that will happen is that that email will go to your own mail server. So if you are using, say, Outlook, or if you are using Yahoo or Google or whatever you're using, so that email will first go to the mail server of yahoo.com, google.com, or outlook.com, or whatever the service you are using. From there, that email will pass through like all the way to the internet, and it will come to GVSU's mail server. So GVSU is using Outlook for its emails. So one of the Outlook servers will be dedicated for GVSU, and your mail from Yahoo, Google, or any other mail server will come into GVSU's mail server. Then I will get a notification on my PC, or on my mobile, that there is an email lying in your unread email in your mailbox. Please check it. And then at the end, I can connect to my mail server that is assigned my email address, and I will contact it and get or retrieve my email. So as you can see, the evidence of email can be at the client side, it can sorry, or the sender side, it can be at the receiver side, or it can be at both of these mail servers, the sender mail server as well as the receiver mail server. Similarly, like there might be some couple of other mail servers here on the internet that the mail pass through in order to reach the final destination. So the record of the email going through those mail servers can also be found on them. So this is the overview, like, when you want to conduct the email investigation, what are the things that you should be looking at? So the first thing is the evidence of the email will be, it is contained in the email itself. So all the content, the attachments, all the other metadata, header information, everything is in email. So if you just look at the email, download the email and start investigating, you can find most of the data over there. So this is your first step, like, just extract the email files or extract the individual emails and you can start your investigation. The second thing is all the other things, all the other locations or machines that your email passes through, it leaves like traces or it leaves kind of, footprint behind. So you can check various logs that are maintained on either your machine, sender machine, receiver machine, as well as all the intermediary mail servers. So now if you want to get the log or if you want to get the data, say from Google's mail server or Outlook's mail server, can you guys go knock at their door and would they be willingly giving you the data? No. So if you need data from, these mail servers, most of the time you might need, like the help from the law enforcement. So if you are investigating a case and you need data from Google of for one of their mail servers, or you need data from Yahoo or Outlook or any other email company, then you will have to involve law enforcement agencies, and they might need to get subpoena in order to, like force them to give you the data, or they might get a warrant in order to go there and get the data for you. So these are the three different locations in which you can find data. Your mail server, like your machine, or machine of the sender and receiver, the mail servers, all the mail servers that have been in between, and specifically the mail server of the sender and the receiver. So here's a detailed view of how your email goes from one location to another and what are the different steps. So if you guys look at the slide, we have sender, which is on domain1.com. So this is one company, domain1.com, and the sender is using their machine. For example, in this case, it is using their PC, and sender wants to send an email to user at domain2.com. So you can see that domain1.com, domain2.com, they are two different websites. They can be, like on the opposite side of the globe, one here in USA, the other might be in China or something like that. So what happens is when any client sends an email, or say sender at domain1.com wants to send an email to this user, the first thing it will do is it will send that email to its mail server. So sender or domain1.com runs their own SMTP servers. So SMTP servers are basically the mail servers that different organizations run in order to provide their user the email capability or functionality. So now SMTP mail server of domain1.com don't know what is the mail server's name for domain2.com, right? So what it will do is it will send a request to domain2.com's DNS server. So if you guys don't know about DNS server, it is domain name for the domain name translation. So it will contact this DNS server and it will ask that, is there any email server or SMTP server running on your domain or for your company that I can forward the email to? Then this domain2.com or DNS server will get back to our SMTP server or domain1's SMT server, giving it the MX records. So when we say mail servers in networking terms, the terminology used is MX for mail servers. So MX records mean the name or IP address of the email server of domain2. Once the SMTP server of domain1 gets the MX record, then it can directly send the message to the domain2.com's mail server. And from there, the user, like domain2.com's mail server will send this information or will put our email in user's mailbox and send a notification to user that there is an email for you that you need to check. So as this picture, like is more in depth and it gives you more detail. So you can say that we can find evidence over here on the client machine. We can find evidence over here on the receiver's machine. We can also find evidence on the sender's SMTP server, the receiver's SMTP server, and all other SMTP servers through which this email passes through, right? So this is how the email works, and these are all the locations from where you can find the evidence of the email. So these are just the steps of the previous thing that we discussed, this like slide over here, like how they go one by one. So you can read them if you are still confused or if you have any questions. So when we talk about the protocols, they are basically three main protocols that are important when it comes to the email communication. So the first protocol is SMTP, and SMTP, like if you guys look here, all the mail servers, they communicate using the SMTP protocol. So from this point onwards, all the communication, like when this SMTP server sends or this mail server sends data to the domain 2's mail server, that communication will happen on SMTP protocol. So all the mail servers, they use SMTP protocol for communication. The next thing is we have on the receiver side two protocols, IMAP and POP3. So let's discuss them with the help of this example. So now when the email arrives at the receiver's mail server, receiver has two options or two protocols with which it can get the email to its own machine. The first one is called IMAP or IMAP protocol. In IMAP protocol, there will be one copy of the email here, and the server will send another copy of this email to the receiver. It will keep the original copy or one copy to itself and send another copy to the user. So in that case, you can see the email can be found at both the receiving server as well as the receiver's own machine or own computer. The other protocol, which is POP3, what happens in POP3 is that if you use POP3 in order to get the email at the receiver machine, then there will be no copy of that email left on the server. And like you are basically popping out the email from the server and getting or receiving it on the receiver's end machine. So three protocols: SMTP for sending email from one mail server to another mail server. Then in order to retrieve the email, you have two protocols, POP3. POP3 will pop the email from the server and give it to the receiving machine, whereas IMAP will just, rather than popping, it will just make a copy of the email. So you will have one copy over here and the second copy on the receiver's machine. Now there is one more protocol, which is, for example, this particular case. In this case, the client is using an application in order to send the email. If it was using, or the client was using, say, webmail like Gmail, then the connection between your machine and the mail server or SMTP server of Google will be through HTTP. So HTTP is another protocol that is, for those of you guys who are familiar with networks, all your communication like web communication or internet communication goes through HTTP protocol. So these are the protocols that are interested. You can read more details over here. Here is another example of how this communication works. So which further illustrate the use of these protocols. So in order to send the mail over here, we can either use HTTP if it's a webmail, or we can use SMTP protocol to send the emails from like client machine to client's email server as well. So since SMTP basically uses port 25 for communication, but since like a lot of people abuse 425, or it can be used to fraud, or like spoof emails, or you do the phishing scam, or even like spam emails, or spam attacks. So a lot of the internet service providers, what they do is they block port 25 for the end users. So you can try this activity at home as well. Try to communicate on port 25 using SMTP protocol using telnet. If you see it's working, then good. Otherwise, you will see that your internet service provider kind of transfers all the requests or all the communication that you send on port 25 to one of these two ports. So it can either be converted to port 587 or port 465. So once your email is at email server, in order to send it to the destination, it has to pass through multiple other email servers. And the email servers, like two email servers, they can communicate with each other only on SMTP protocol. So over here, you have the liberty of using SMTP or using HTTP, but when the email passes from one mail server to another, it will be using SMTP protocol. Now on the receiver side, you have two protocols, IMAP, which uses these two ports 143 and 993, and POP3, which uses port 110 and 995. So once your email has reached the destination, like the destination of the destination mail server of the receiver, then the receiver gets a notification, and now it can either use web interface or an application provided by the email company in order to get the protocol in order to get the email, and these are the two protocols that will be used. So with this information in mind, we now know how emails work, what the emails are, what are the different protocols, that are being used in emails. Let's jump into the cases or different type of, attacks that are being done in order to like using emails, and how we can investigate them. So the first attack, or you can say cases or scams that you might see is or lie under the phishing. So we generally call the phishing scams. So let's understand what phishing scams are. So in phishing scams, what the attackers do is they send you deceptive emails. So that is their bait. By the way, this is the way in which we will be discussing these attacks. So the bait, the trap, the deception, and the consequences. So the bait here is like, you open your browser and you see an email which is, deceptive in nature, and the email will say that, hey, you have won this lottery, and we need to send you or transfer you this money. Please contact us on this particular email address, and we can move forward. Or they might give you some link as well, like please log in on this link, or please fill this form, and so on. So that is basically a trap that they try to persuade, or fraud, or like use deception in order to make the receiver believe that it is a genuine email, and I would get some rewards if I click on this particular email address, or if I send an email to this particular email address, or if I click on this link and do the process that they say. Once you click on that, you might go to an interface that looks like a real interface. For example, they might have created a fake interface for, say, chase.com or Bank of America or any other bank, and over there they might have like a beautiful form that says like write your name, email address, physical address, give your social security number, and the bank account routing number in which you want this routing number and account number in which you want to receive this email. So that fancy looking interface, most of the time it's fake. So it is not related to either Chase or Bank of America or anything else. It's just like a front end interface that the attackers might have developed, and they just want you to give the information over there. And the consequence of this whole thing is, poor people that are not that much knowledgeable about the cybersecurity, they start believing that it is all authentic, and they give their important information and the data like social security numbers, routing numbers, account numbers, and all that, that might end up into wrong hands. So now what we need to do when we are doing investigating the phishing scam cases or cases related to phishing scam, the first thing is how we can identify a phishing email, right? So if somebody says that he's a victim of a phishing scam, and you are hired to investigate whether he's saying truth or not, the first thing to look at is the sender's email address. So for example, if I get an email from chase.com, or a Chase Bank or Bank of America or any other bank, I will have to verify that the email ID from which this email is coming from is actually related to the bank or not. The second thing that I need to verify is the sender's domain or SMTP server. So if you guys look here all the way back, whenever we send an email, that email first goes to the SMTP server, right? So if the email was originally coming from the Bank of America or Chase or any other legitimate institute, it will go, or it will originate from that institute's mail server or SMTP server. So when you are looking at the email and you see that the mail server that started this email is, not associated with Bank of America or Chase, then that would be an indication that this email is a phishing scam, and this is like email was sent just for the purpose of phishing. It's not authentic. Similarly, if there is a domain or anything else that is there that we need to examine, we would need to examine that domain as well. So most of the times, the SMTP servers, you can either see an IP address for that or a domain name for that. So both of the cases you have to, identify or do further investigation. If you have a domain name, then verify that, to whom this domain belongs to. Similarly, if you have IP address, you have to verify that to which organization this IP address belongs to. The other thing is, like, most of the times, you can see that these scammers, they send links for, those fancy fake portals. So you need to investigate those hyperlinks that are in the email as well. So most of the time, if the link, for example, is coming from chase.com or Bank of America or any other banking institute, it will have that in the domain. For example, it might be something X, like, anything XYZ, ABC, whatever, but the ending domain should be chase.com or bankofamerica.com or any other banks.com, right? So you have to check for the hyperlinks. There are two anomalies that we should be aware of. The first is short links. So what are short links? Short links are, like a new service. For example, if you guys go on your browser, you are like on YouTube or something, go click on the browser's location where it has the complete URL for that particular video. You can see that sometimes the URL is pretty large. So nowadays, some organizations use short links. So you convert that big URL into a short URL that is, like one third of the size or even smaller than that, and that you can paste in your email, and it looks more, like you can say it looks more clean. So some of the times, if you see a hyperlink in the email and you don't, recognize that hyperlink, it might not be looking something like XYZ at chase.com or Bank of America. It is possible that that might have been short link. So you need to go search on the internet how to, like convert the short link to the full link, and you can see that whether it belongs to the original or real organization or not. Another thing is link redirects. So sometimes these companies or, organizations, if they are doing some type of, market analysis, or say, sentiment analysis, not sentiment analysis, you can say like generally marketing analysis or internet measurement, they will hire a third party. So for example, if Chase wants to know that how many of people are interested in this new credit card, what they will do is they will hire a third party which will be just for this market analysis purposes. They will give them the original link, but the link that you see in the email, it will be of that third party that is doing all the market analysis on behalf of the Chase. So when you click on that link, you are first taken to that third party's website, and from there you are taken to the original Chase website. So by clicking and, going through that momentarily gives them the data that they need to process or do the market analysis. So these are the two anomalies, like short links and a link redirects. Apart from that, if you see any link that claims, or if you see any email that claims that it is coming from Chase and they want you to open a link, and that link doesn't end with chase.com, then that is definitely a phishing scam, and you should try to avoid those links. So if you have any questions about this, just shoot me an email and I will be willing to answer if you guys are interested in, the offensive parts as well. So the next thing is understanding spoofing. So spoofing is another form of attack. So what spoofing is basically that you are impersonating somebody else. So for example, you can, send an email to one of your other classmates, and you can pretend that this email is coming from me or coming from the instructor. So this is the idea, that you impersonate somebody else on the emails. The technique is forging sending information. So I will show you guys, like, how it is done using the Telnet and SMTP protocol. But you can, like send an email, say coming from White House or coming from Trump, and you can send it to anybody else you want, right? And the goal here is to gain the trust. So you want the other person or the receiver to believe that this email is coming from a legitimate source and believe whatever is inside the email. So maybe someone, like can send you guys an email that since you guys are so good, there will be no final exam and everybody will get full points, right? So there's no way I'm going to send that email, but you can see that, that email for you will be trustworthy because it would be coming from my email address. But in reality, somebody just forged that email or forged the sender's information. And the common use case are scams and phishing. So you will see a lot of cases related to email spoofing that you might have to solve in, if you are working as a digital forensic investigator. So let's see how it works. So the first thing that we know, so this is like a demo. So I'm just like giving you guys the actual, showing you the actual screenshots of our demo that I just did. So I wanted to send an email from, one of my students' email ID, or I'm impersonating my student, and I want to send that email to my email address. All right. So since my email address is, I'm gonna use GVSU's email ID. The first thing I need to know is I want to find that what is the mail server that GVSU is using, right? So for that, you guys can do this experiment on Kali Linux machines as well. Just follow these instructions. So the first thing, I use this command dig -d mx gvsu.edu. So I'm talking to gvsu.edu, or I'm telling this dig tool that give me the address of the mail server. So remember mx over here, the mail server that gvsu.edu uses. So once you run this query, you will get like a bunch of email servers. So you can see all of these GVSU, edu, mail.protection, outlook.com. So it is running a different set of email servers. GVSU is using say 5, 6 email servers, and these are the IP addresses of these mail servers as well. Now I can select any of these mail servers and start the SMTP communication with that. So this is the next step. What you can do is we will be using telnet. So telnet can be used to create an SMTP connection with a mail server. So if you guys look here, I'm doing or starting a SMTP connection to this GVSU's mail server that I just like found out from the previous slide. And this communication, since it's SMTP, it's on gonna be on port 25. So you can see that it is my communication is connected, or my telnet session is now established, and I receive this message from the mail server. So you can see 220. So this is the mail server, and it says that, SMTP mail server ready at this time and blah, blah, blah. So this way, I am able to connect or communicate directly to the SMTP server. Now, the interesting thing that, enables the whole spoofing scam, or, this type of crimes, is that there is no protection whatsoever on SMTP protocol. So generally, when we, log in into a webmail, or, a client machine, we will have to provide our emails IDs and, passwords in order to, log in into our email. But here, if we directly communicate with the SMTP server or the mail server, there is no protection whatsoever on that. All the SMTPs or the mail server needs to verify is that the sender's email is valid and the receiver's email address is valid as well and is within its own domain. Now, once my session is established, then I say this, send this message, hello, HELO. So all the commands that I use, they are basically SMTP. And if you want to recreate it, you will have to do it the same way. So I send a hello message to the server, that hello from my side, and I get a reply from the server that hello, and it is using my IP address or replying to my IP address since it doesn't know my name. Now I tell the server that I have a mail from qasim@gvsu.edu, that I have an email from qasim.gvsu.edu, this address. The server checks this address, it verifies that it is a legitimate email address, and it sends me a reply that sender okay, meaning this email address has passed the authentication and it's okay. Then I tell the server recipient RCPT recipient 2, and I tell it that this email is destined to qasims@gvsu.edu. So for this experiment, I was just sending an email to myself just to show you guys like how it works. Then you can see that I received a recipient okay from the server, that this recipient is fine to, it is a valid email address in its own mail domain. Now, once that is done, then I tell the server data, DATA. So I am telling the server that, okay, now everything is okay. Sender and receivers are okay. And I'm going to write the content of the email. And when you type or send the data command, the server will tell you if it is successful, that start email input and with dot or period sign. So server is basically telling me that start writing the email, and once you are done, put a single dot on a new line, and that in that way I would know that this is the end of the data part or end of the content of the email. Then I start writing the email. So I try to, make it look like a real email. I say from qasims@gvsu.edu to qasims.gvsu.edu. I give it a subject that this is a test, and then I write some email content as well. This is a test for spoofing. Now you can sometimes, like you don't have to type this thing from to subject in the data part, but it is always preferred, because if an email doesn't have a subject, then most of the times like your email or your mail server will just put those emails into the junk folder or into the spam folder. So just to make sure that this email looks like a real email, or it looks like it is coming from a legitimate source, I am trying to make it as real as possible. So once I am done, you can see here I have this dot sign or the comma sign at the end of the like the mail. And once I do that, I got this reply from the server saying that all okay, this queued email for delivery, that it has accepted my email and now it will deliver it to the recipient's mail address. So this is how it looks like in my own inbox. So right after, just as soon as I close that, I received this email in my inbox. And as you guys can see, that it is the same email that we just sent using the telnet protocol. So this way you can spoof as many emails as you want. And spoofing, what you are doing is you are just impersonating somebody else. Now you can send an email on my behalf as well using my email id kasims@gbsu.edu. You can send that email to anybody else in the class if you like. So there is another way, another tool. So in this example or in this tutorial, we use Telnet in order to send the emails. If you guys are more interested, there's another tool, Send Email, and that is available in all the Kali Linux. So just search Send Email and Google how it works. Basically, the idea is same, that both of them use the SMTP protocol. And if you have to know the SMTP protocol, you need two email addresses, one for impersonating the sender, and the victim in this case would be the receiver. And just like write whatever content you want, and then you can send that information, or you can send that email to anybody on the internet. All right, so the next type of cases, or you can say, email related stuff, attacks that you can see is the email forgery. So let's understand what email forgery is and how it works. So the idea behind email forgery is that you are creating a new email out of thin air, or you're altering an email that was already being sent. So for example, giving you example that I send you guys an email that, there will be a quiz on Thursday, and someone just like force that email or alters that email, saying that there will be no quiz on Thursday. So the technique that most people use in order to forge an email is to modifying either the header part of the email, or they can also modify the content of the email or the individual message. And the goal here is that they want to misrepresent the content, and like make the receiver believe something else, which the sender didn't send or didn't know of. And the common use case for these type of attacks that you might have to investigate are fraud related cases. So they might, like you might receive an email or a check from somebody on an email, and you later find out that the whole email or the check or all the information that was there, that was all fake and made up. So if we want to investigate, the email, or especially the email forgery, so the first thing that you would look at is the email itself. And these are the four fields that are shown in every email. So if you just open any email on your web browser, you will see that you have a to field, a from field, a subject, and a date. But in fact, these are just the fields that you see, like just these are there in the plain view. But if we look further into the email, and maybe just open an email, save it in your browser or in your computer, and open the email using a hex editor. So when you use or open an email using a hex editor, you can also use like Sublime Text or WinHex or anything else. You will see that there are a lot of other fields and data that is there in the email. So some of them are shown here. So the one in red are the things that you don't see normally when you open an email, but you will see things like message ID, received, DKIM, and X priority, and so on. So in the slide notes, you can see there are total 12 to 13, or even I think 17, 18 different fields that are there in the SMTP header or in the SMTP like email that you receive. But from the GUI or from the GUI, you just see these basic ones like to, from, subject, BCC, CC, content, date, these type of things. So these fields in the red, especially the message ID, received, and DKIM, they can help us immensely if we want to investigate the frauds or if we want to investigate the email forgery. So let's jump into their details and look at them one by one to see what they are. So the first thing is received field. So received is the most essential field in the SMTP header. So what happens is whenever your email passes through one email server to another, for example, I am the sender, I send the email, it will go to my SMTP server. That SMTP server will put a received line so on that email, and it will say that I have received this email from this client, maybe put my email address and the date on which the server received that email. Then when that my email server or SMTP server forwards that email to the next SMTP server, the next SMTP server will put its own received line on top of that, and it will add that I received the email from the sender's SMTP server and the date and time at which the email was received. So this way, like all the SMTP servers that your email passes through, they will all add their own information in the email, and by the time it reaches the receiver, it will have a complete chain of all those SMTP servers that it passes through, and you can observe that in the email itself as well. So the best way to read it from bottom to top. So the sender's SMTP server will be at the very bottom, and the receiver's SMTP server will be at the top. So here's an example. So if you guys see here, this email was sent from Mr. Johns at emailprovider.com. So this is the first domain or first organization, and it was sent to Mr. Smith at gmail.com. So from emailproviders.com, an email was sent to gmail.com. So if we look at this email, you can see there are three different received entries or received lines in the email. So the first one says that received from. So this is the email address of Mr. Johns. It says received from this particular IP address, this particular individual by. So this is the first SMTP server of the sender, which is mailprovider.com via HTTP and the time at which this email was received. Now this mail server then forwards this mail server to like forwards this email to Google's mail server. When the Google Mail server receives this email, it adds its own line, which you see in the middle, that it says mail from mail.emailprovider.com, which was the sender's SMTP server, received by mx.gmail.com. This is the intermediary or Google Mail server. And it says that, it provides it a SMTP ID, which we will discuss later what it is, and the date and time at which this Google's mail server received this email. Now that email is delivered to the mailbox of Mr. Smith. So you will see that delivered to Mr. Smith, received by, this is the IP address of Mr. Smith, or whatever computer Mr. Smith was using in order to retrieve that email, and return path is Mr. John's emailprovider.com, which is the original SMT server that initiated this email. So as you can see here in this whole chain, if you just list down these received lines, you will get the entire path that the email took from senders to the receiver. And if there is, for example, you get an email from chase.com or bankofamerica.com, you will have to look into these received fields. If they go all the way back to the legitimate mail server of chase.com or bankofamerica.com, then it would mean that they are coming from a legitimate, originally they are coming from the bank sites, or they are coming from authentically from the bank. If they don't go, or you see an email that is originating, the first receive field say cas.gvsu.edu, then that would mean that that email originated from GVSU rather than originating from Bank of America or Chase. So this is the first way, or the first thing that you can investigate in order to solve cases related to email forgery or email alteration. The next thing is DKIM, which is domain key identified mail. So what DKIM is basically, all the organizations, they use public and private key encryption in order to encrypt the outgoing emails from their domains. So for example, GVSU will have a public and a private key. So all the emails that I send you guys from my GVSU email ID, GVSU's mail server will take a hash of that, the content of my email, using the private key of GVSU, and then send or put that hashed value in the form of a DKIM signature in my email, and then send it to the internet, and it will finally reach the destination. Now, when it is at the destination mail server will check that signature or DKIM key, which is there in the email. It will decrypt it using the public key of the GVSU, and if both of the mails are same, the content is same, then that would mean that there was no alteration in between from sender to receiver. That email would be considered authentic email, and it would be sent to the inbox of the receiver. Otherwise, if that DKIM verification fails, then that would mean that the email is not authentic, and it is, like coming from a fraudulent source, or it is being altered while on the go. So things to remember here is that the sending SMTP server, like, the SMTP server of the sender adds this DKIM and send or attach it with the email or that it sends. So if we guys look here, let me see if I can get the actual email for you guys. So, right. Okay, so as you guys can see here, this is like an actual email that I received, and it is, like the Lakers email that you mostly receive, or you might also have that in your inbox as well. And if we go all the way in this email, so let me show you. So this is where the email starts. So it says subject Lakers ready. It is coming from Provost. My email address, the date, the message ID that I will look or work in explain shortly. The first thing that you see here is DKIM signature. Then we have the authentication that it used RSA SHA-256 in order to compute the hash that I was telling you. And then it added the whole digest over here, attached it to the email, and then forwarded to the destination. Now, if anything happens, any email server in between or any other entity in between messes with this information or messes with the content of the email, then this DKIM would indicate that like alteration of the email. Two things that are important to understand DKIM or to verify whether it is correct, coming legitimate or not, are these two things right here, which is the selector S is equal to E2MA. So this is the value. So the field is selected, and the domain. So what you can do is you can search on the internet and find for, like any device, or like any website that can help you verify that. Let me show you guys an example of that as well. So I am at this website, which is mxtoolsbox.com, and it verifies whether the DKIM signature is right or not. So I need to provide it two things. The first is domain name, and the second is selector. So if you guys look here, we have the selector, which is represented by S is equal to 2MA, and the domain name is e2ma.net. So just copy these two things and paste it over here and do the DKIM lookup, and you can say that it turns all green, so that this website is telling you that this is a valid DKIM signature, and this email is actually coming from a valid source, or it is actually coming from GVSU. All right. So if DKIM authentication fails, you will see that, this, if for any forged email that is not coming from GVSU, but somebody else is pretending, or sending the emails on behalf of GVSU, this DKIM will fail. All right. So the next thing is message ID. So message ID is like another important field in SMTP protocol that can help you in identifying each message individually. So all the emails that we send over the internet, all of them, they have a unique message ID, which is globally unique. So all the emails, in the entire world, all of them, they will have a different message ID. So now as a user, if you receive two emails with the same message ID, then one of them is 100% fake or forged. So the scope of message ID is global, that no two emails will have the same message ID, and the usage is basically for identifying the messages in the whole communication chain. So sometimes like you might receive an email and you reply that. So when you reply there, it is used message ID that this is a reply for this particular message ID. So how we can find that? Again, let's go and look into the Sublime text. So let me search you the message ID. It should be in the very beginning as well, right here. So right when this email was received by, the mail server, so this is, again, you can see this received by fields as well. You can see them in the email. So you see there's a message ID also appended, which is UGSCB dot IVJABL and the whole thing, right? This thing over here. So this is a message ID, and it is a unique message ID which is just associated with this particular email. And globally, there will be no other email with the same message ID. So this can prove the authenticity of the email as well. So if you see two emails with the same message ID, then you will have to investigate both of them. And there is definitely, there will be some, some forgery done over there. So another thing that you can say is, like, once this sender adds this DKIM signature to the email, it goes through, or it is passed as it transfers from one SMTP server to another. So this was the first SMTP server of the GVSU that was used. Then you can see that this is another SMTP server, or the mail server in between, that received that. And once this intermediary mail server receives it, it forwards it to the next one. So you can see here is the third one that is actually the third email server that was used in this whole chain. And the third email server performed the DKIM authentication check. And you can see here it says that DKIM pass. So if this email was not coming from legitimately from GVSU mail server, or coming from somebody else, this DKIM authentication would fail, right? So this way, two things that we have learned so far. The first one was the DKIM field that can be used to authenticate a message, or authenticate, you can say, whether the email is coming from a legitimate organization or their mail servers. The second is message ID, which can be used to uniquely identify each message on the internet, or each email on the internet. And the third thing that we discussed was the received field, which will give us the complete chain, or the complete path that the email took in order to reach the destination, or in order to reach the receiver's inbox. So if there is any discrepancy in any of these, like, received header, received fields don't, chain don't go all the way back, in case of Bank of America email that we have been discussing throughout. If that doesn't, the email that you get for your account details doesn't go all the way to Bank of America, then 100% it's fake. Similarly, if the DKIM authentication is failed in that email, then that would mean that it is a fake email. Similarly, if you have, you see that there was another email that you have in your mailbox, again sent from Chase or Bank of America, and you have a new mail, and both of them have the same message ID, then definitely one of them is fake as well, and you need to investigate them, to further find out which one is the right mail. So here is the receive field example. Here is like how your email will look like if you open it in, a hex editor like a Sublime or something like that. And you can see that, like the return paths, as I showed you in the other example as well, return paths, received, and all the other information, like, SPF and other things are there as well. So now the next thing is, okay, once we have all the path that the email took, the details, IP addresses or domain names of all the email servers that the email passed through, how we can identify the actual organization. Like, just by looking at the IP address or the domain, you cannot verify whether that organization is real or not. So there are multiple ways to identify, the identity of the person or the organization that is behind the email. So the first thing is, you can look at the regional internet registries. So there are different internet registries for different regions, like specific on the world. So you have Asia's, like Asia Pacific Network Information Center, American Registry for Internet Numbers, Latin American and Caribbean Network Information Center, and so on. So you can go to their websites and verify whether, the IP address that you see in the email, whether it belongs to the legitimate mail servers of the, Chase or Bank of America or not. The other is, you can also use a lot of other, websites or services that are available on internet. So one is Who Is. So just, type Who Is on your browser, and it will take you to the website. Similarly, you can just search on Google that how to find the IP address, or how to find the organization behind the IP address. Samspay.org is one example. There are a ton of more that you can use in order to verify the IP address that to which organization that IP address belongs to. If you don't want to use internet, there are a bunch of tools on Linux as well as Windows that you can use. So dig is one example. So if you guys remember in the telnet protocol example or spoofing example that I showed you guys, I started my whole spoofing process with first with the dig command. Why? Because I wanted to know the GVSUs, like what is the domain, what is the mail server that GVSU uses. So similarly, if you just dig gvsu.edu, you will get all the IP addresses of the servers that are used by gvsu.edu. Similarly, NSLookup and Ho is another thing. So for those of you guys who are familiar with networks, NSLookup is a Linux tool. It also works on Windows, and it has several uses, or like several applications. You can find whether a network is working or an IP address is working, what type of ports are open on the destination, what is, like you can also do the domain name translation as well. Like if you give the website name, you can find the IP address using the NS lookup as well, and so on. Host is another example which runs on Linux-based system, and you can use it in order to verify the email address as well. So using all these things, the emails that you, or you can say the IP addresses that you see in the received field. So for example, this IP address over here, or like this domain over here, you can verify whether these domains are correct or whether these IP addresses are correct as well. So now to summarize, like how we can spot spoofed emails. So the first thing, look at the content. So most of the time, the contents, they can give you hints. So if an email is coming from Bank of America or Chase, it is an official email. So look at the grammar. So official emails, they should have proper grammar, proper writing, and all that. But if the content is very casual, like hey bro, you just got $10,000 in your account, click here, then that's definitely not a legitimate email, because Bank of America or Chase will not speak to you in that grammar or in that, like language. So look at the content. So usually you will find the content. The next thing is look at all the SMTP servers the email passes through. So as we just saw, that email passes through, one SMTP server to another. So each SMTP server will put some information or put some tags in that email. So received was one important thing. So look all the way, look at the received values all the way till the beginner or the originating SMTP server. If it is authentic SMTP server, then that would mean the email is authentic. Otherwise, it is spoofed. Then we can also use internet services in order to verify the header data. So as I mentioned, like the IP addresses or the domains that you see in the message, just verify them and make sure that they belong to a legitimate organization. For example, if I see a domain name which doesn't look like chase.com, or an IP address that I don't know which organization it belongs to, I can always check them on the internet or using the tools like dig, NSLookup, and so on, whether they actually belong to Chase or not. And lastly, if there is any discrepancies or break in the receive lines, the email doesn't go all the way back to chase.com or bankofamerica.com, then it is definitely forged or spoofed. So here is another example. So one of my fellow professors, Dr. Shinli Wang, he received an email from Trump at whitehouse.edu. And the email said, like, please call us. So, like this is a very exciting email if you receive it, but we all know that this is not correct, and this must have been a spoofed email. So if you open it in a hex editor, you will, you can see further in this email further from like more deep, and you will see all these SMT fields. So the first thing that we will look at is this received field. So we see received from the first here, the second here, and if you see here in the second received field, we see that SMTP mail from cis.gvsu.edu, right? So this tells us that this email is basically originating from cisgvsu.edu. It is not coming from the actual what you call that White House website. Another thing that you can see in this email is this DKIM is equal to none, right? Message not signed. So this is a very big flag or a very big red flag. If the DKIM is not is none, that means the DKIM verification failed. Then this message is 100% fake. So now by examining an email, you will be able to see whether it is, whether it is correct or not. Now, a next question that might come in your mind is how, okay, now we know that, spoofing emails is bad. We can identify a spoofed email. But is there any way to stop people from spoofing emails, or, is there any way to automate this process? And the answer is yes. We have a couple of techniques that we can use in order to stop email spoofing. The first thing is we can use encryption such as SSL or TLS. So we can, every email that we send, we can encrypt it, and the receiver can then verify whether this email is correct or not. The other thing is there are a lot of other services or other like network techniques that are used in order to make sure that in order to stop the email spoofing. First thing is the DKIM that we discussed earlier, domain key identifier. You see two more things here. The first is SPF, which is Sender Policy Framework. And the second is DMARC, which is Domain-Based Method Authentication, Reporting, and Conformance. So what are SPF and DMRC? Let's look into them one by one. So the first thing, SPF represents Sender Policy Framework, and it is an email authentication protocol that was designed to prevent email spoofing and phishing attack. So what you basically do is, like, if we talk about GVSU, GVSU tells the word or registers, the email servers that can send emails on their behalf. So for example, GVSU might say that, we have a mail server called mx1.gvsu.edu, and this is our, official mail server in order to send the emails. Now we are basically publicizing that if any email comes from any other server apart from this server, then that is not our property, that is not sent by GVSU. So what you do is you register your mail servers, or the mail servers that any organization will be using with the third parties, and then those email servers become your official email servers for communication. And if any email comes from, or is received by any other user, and it is not coming from the registered email servers that are registered by the SPF, then that would mean it is not original, it is coming from a fake source. The other thing is DMARC. So DMARC is basically a policy that we tell the receiving server that look at all these, like authentication mechanisms such as DKIM, such as SPF, such as sender's ID or message ID, and so on. And it is a policy that, like, if any of these fail, or if, the authentication is not working, or if the message is not authenticated, what to do next with that message. So with the DMARC, we are telling the receiver that if, like, we can, as an organization, tell the receiver that if DKIM fails, then just reject the email. Or we can say if DKIM fails but SPF is approved or passed, then pass this email, or think that it is a correct email. So SPF and DKIM, these are the individual components or the mechanisms, and DMARC is basically the broader policy that what will you do in case any of the authentication fail. So we attach all of this information in the SMTP header, or you can say in the email header when we send our emails. So if you open any email, in your mailbox, just open it in Hex Editor, save it, open it in Hex Editor or Sublime Text, and you will see all these things that we have discussed. So now how ISPS works is, for example, we have a sender over here, and he sent an email to the receiver. Now the email has came into the receiver's mail server. Now, first thing the receiver will do is to check whether this email that might look like it is coming from, mail servers of GVSU, or, it is coming from the GVSU domain, whether it is authentic or not. So what it will do is it will do a SPF lookup. So it will contact the GVSU's DNS server, and it will tell the GVSU server, or ask the GVSU server, that what are the email servers that you are using, or it will inquire about the MX record. So if you guys remember, we did dig gvsu.edu, dig mx gvsu.edu. So we were inquiring GVSU servers that what are the mail servers that you are using, right? So GVSU's DNS will reply back with the email servers that are authenticated by GVSU to send emails on their behalf. Now, this receiver's mail server will see or compare the authenticated email server by GVSU with the original email server that is there in the email. If they both of them match, then that means it is an authentic message actually coming from GVSU's domain. Then it will notify the user, pop it or put it in the user's mailbox. Otherwise, it will, the receiver's mail server will find out that it was a forged email. This is not an authentic email, and it will reject it, maybe, completely drop the message, or it can just put that message into the spam folder. So I just want you to give you guys another example, show you right here in practice. So this is the email, the Laker study email that I received. And if we see here, we see, like all the SPF entries as well. So you can see that authentication result SPF is equal to pass, and this is sender's IP. So what actually happened, and this is the mail server of this IP. So what actually happened in the background was that this mail server, receiver's mail server, checked or inquired to GVSU's DNS server, and it made sure that this SMTP mail from is equal to e2ma.net, or this IP address from which this email claims that it is originated, whether it is actually GVSU or not. So this SPF is passed. That means this email is authentic. The other thing is DKIM. It is passed as well because it is actually verified. So based on these things, we have the DMARC. So let me show you DMARC as well. So you can see here this DMARC authentication is also pass and action is none, right? So this is the policy of GVSU, that DMARC policy of GVSU, that if DMARC passes, then do nothing. If it fails, then it will probably drop this packet, or put the packet in the spam, or whatever the organization want to do. In that case, they can put that in the DMARC policy. So these fields are there in order to protect the email. So we have four of them: SPF, sender ID, DKIM, and DMARC. So sender ID is also the ID of the sending SMTP server. All right. So the next, let's talk about some hints for investigating the emails, or investigating, what you can do. So verify all the IP addresses. So all the SMTP servers that you see, the email passes through, verify them one by one, see if they are legitimate or not. Make a timeline of all the events. So from the received fields, there is a time with the received line as well, like when the email server received this message. So list down all the received times, and like make a diagram somewhere on the chart or on paper, and trace all the email all the way back to the sender. Look at the times, look at if there is any strange behavior. For example, the sender sent the email at 5 p.m., but the email actually arrived at the receiver end at, say, 8 p.m. or 10 p.m. So we all know that emails, they are most of the time, like generally they go instantaneously. So there can be 1 or 2 minute gap, but 3-4 hour gap in, like receiving that is definitely that it is a proof that there is something wrong going on in between. Lastly, we can also check the server logs as well. So all the emails that all the servers, our email passes through, all of them will log that information, or will log that event, that I received an email from this user and I forwarded it to this SMTP server. So every SMTP server in your path will be logging that. So check into them as well. So when it comes to the SMTP servers, what information we can obtain from SMTP server? So we can see account received, like from which sender or email address the email is coming from, the IP address from which they sent that email, the time and date at which any server receives the email, the IP address from where it is getting the email, and so on. And many servers, depending on the configuration, so different organizations configure their mail servers differently. So in many cases, you can even find the complete email text in the logs of email servers as well. So complete copies of the emails, they may reside on the email server. It looks like a very useful resource, but we cannot completely rely on it. Why? Because different companies or organizations, they configure the mail server, they have different policies. So some organization might be keeping a record for like 1 month. Some might delete the record after 1 week, like they keep the record for 1 week and after that they delete the old record. Some organizations might have a policy that delete every email log by midnight or something like that. So these can be the issues, like depending on the organization's policy, the amount of data in the past that you can observe will vary. So with all our knowledge of SMTP protocol and emails, let's try to, come up with a case or try to solve a case study. So this is the case study that we have at our hand, which is about an email forgery or email scam. So what the case is that an email attached to a $12 million lawsuit, purported to be from CEO of tech.com to a venture capital broker. The message outlined guaranteed warrants on the next round of funding for the broker. So this broker right here is claiming that I got an email from the CEO of tech.com, and in that email the CEO pledged 20 million to us. Now we need that 20 million. So the CEO of tech.com says that this is a forged email. I didn't send any email like that. So they filed a counterclaim and claimed that the email that is in question right here is forgery. Now the law firm engaged us as digital forensic investigator, and they want us to investigate this case. All right. So the first thing is where to start, how we can, start our investigation. So the first, like you can say, location or machine that we will look is the CEO's computer. So we will image the CEO's computer, and get the email record, like make a copy of the hard drive, the memory, and all. And we can, try to make sure that we have the evidence that this mail was sent through the CEO's computer or not, right? So we will try to investigate the hard drive. Now it is possible that the CEO is not using a client. Like for example, there's no program on CEO's PC that sends that information. There is, in that case, there will be no log of that as well. What if the CEO is just using webmail? So in the case of webmail, all the information will be at the SMTP server of tech.com. So we search for the tech.com server, and we will try to find any evidence of this email on the server of the tech.com. So we try to find the CEO's, try to investigate the CEO's computer. We didn't find any evidence of the said email. Now the next thing, let's go to the server of the tech.com. So we will question, or we will try to investigate the server logs of tech.com, and we will try to see if we find any evidence of the said email being sent by this email server. So in our case, we try to investigate or find that email in question, but we didn't find that. So based on these two things, we can say that there was no evidence of the email being sent on the CEO of tech.com's computer, and there is no evidence of the email originating from tech.com's email server as well, or SMTP servers as well. Based on these two things, we as forensic investigator are saying that this email is forged and it is fake. So we present these analysis to the law firm that hired us. They then presented it to the federal judge, and the law firm then requested the federal judge to give them a subpoena, so we can also image or investigate the broker, which is the receiver in this case, broker's PC, or the whatever machine the broker is using, laptop or PC, and their mail server as well, just to verify whether there is an email over there or not. So when we filed this, the brokers firm, they said like, no, we don't trust these guys, and there is no way we believe what they are saying. This email is legit. What the court will do is they will appoint a third person, or a third party, another forensic investigator, to investigate this claim. So now this is the alleged email that the broker is saying that I received from the CEO of the tech company or tech.com, pledging $20 million. So if you guys look here, we have all the material that we need to investigate it. So we have all these received fields. So we have received one, received two, received three. This is the content of the email: warrants on 25 million funding. It was sent on Thursday, 3 August at this particular time. So note this time, like make a diagram or a node and add or enter this time. Here you can see message ID. So as I mentioned earlier in this lecture, that each email that you send will have a unique message ID, which is globally unique. So this is the message ID of the email. And then this email was sent from the sender's machine or the CEO's machine. The first SMTP server was this SMTP server of the tech company. So this is webmail.tech.com. So you see the first receive line. So it is saying that webmail.com, webmail.tech.com received this message from tech.com because the user or the CEO was using a webmail, and it assigned this ESMTP ID, right? And then the time at which it received this message. Now, this server, webmail.tech.com, sent this email to another server, which is mail.tech.com. And this mail server again puts an ESMTP ID in the email and notes the time at which it received this email. Finally, the mailtech.com server sent this email to the actual mail server of that hedge fund or the broker, which is hedgefund.fund.com. And the server also adds a ESMTP ID and adds the date at which the email was received from the sender. Now, a question might come in your mind is, what is the ESMTP ID that keeps on popping? So the ESMTP ID is basically a unique ID that is assigned to each email by the individual mail server. So remember, there are two IDs: message ID, which is assigned by the sending mail server, and it is globally unique. The ESMTP ID is the ID assigned to each individual email by the email server. So for example, if I send the email to tech.com server, it goes to the second server and then it goes to the third server. All these servers, they will add their own ESMTP IDs in the email or in the received field. Now, how these servers calculate this SMTP IDs can vary from, one server to another, but generally there is a set principle or a fixed principle in assigning the IDs. For example, you can have the date, the time, the IP address of the server, and a couple of other things, and you can combine them together in order to create a ESMTP ID. So if we know the ESMTP ID, we can draw back or we can conclude the time, the exact date at time at which this server might have processed this email, right? So keep that in mind while we investigate this case. So you can see that originally this email server, the first email server, that is our email server, added the ESMTP ID of RAA01318. Then the second email server added the ESMTP ID, which is right here. And then the third email server added another email ID, ESMTP ID, that is written over here, and also note the times at which they were sent. So with this information, we create a timeline over here, right? So the first, this is RAA01318, which will be right here. And it says that it is generated at this particular time. So we note the time as well, and the email server that processed this email. Similarly, the time at which the second email server processed this application or this email, and the time at which the third server, right over here, 15:45:31, at which the hedge funds mail server processed this email. Now, if we look forward into our mail server, then like in our analysis, we will find that the time which says over here that at 14:43, our mail server, which is tech.com's mail server, assigned this particular ID. So when the third party investigator looked into our mail servers, the third party investigator find out that at this given time, our mail server was not assigning the ESMTP IDs in this particular range. Instead, it was assigning the email IDs in another range. All right. So based on the ESMTP ID assigned to the email and the time at which this email ID was assigned, we can figure out that this email that the broker is claiming that it originally came from our server, at that time, our server was not assigning these email IDs. So hence this is fake. All right. So you can further read into that, go through the slides. And if you guys are confused, it will like clear most of your ambiguities or questions about the whole investigation. But this is a very interesting case, email forgery case that you can use using the SMTP knowledge or the SMTP header knowledge. So now let's summarize our investigation or summarize the things that we discussed so far. So what are the things that investigate when you are investigating email crimes and violations? What are the things that you need to keep in mind? So the first thing is similar to other type of investigation, we have to search, collect evidence. So we have to follow all the legal processes that we do for any other investigation. The second thing, which is unique for emails, is the forensic linguistic, which is understanding or looking at the content of the email, looking at the grammar mistakes, or just analyzing that if you get an email from your bank versus if you get an email from your friend, the nature of the language that is used in both of them should be totally different. Because the emails coming from banks, they should be more official. So they should be officially linguistically more close to the formal language, whereas if email is coming from your friend or your family, then there is some sort of casualness over there. So just examine the linguistic or examine the content of the image. The next thing is examining the email messages, the individual email messages, what we can look there. So try to see the email header. So all the SMTP fields that we talked about so far, your SPF authentication, DKIM, DMARC, look at the received fields, look at the message IDs, ESMTP IDs, and so on. So look into all those header fields or SMT fields and try to make sure that you have a complete picture or a complete path that the email took, and that would solve most of the cases. Further, if there are some attachments to the email, then we will have to look at those attachments as well. And if all the servers that the email has passed through, we will have to look at the server logs on all those servers as well for additional information, just to verify whether the email actually passed from them or whether it is all fake. The next thing is tracing an email. So just follow all the received lines that you see in the email. Make a diagram like this one, where you have original, then all the email that all the SMTP servers that the email passes through till it reach the destination. Note down the times, note down the ESMTP IDs and the IP addresses of those servers as well. All right. So the next thing is, let's talk about the email servers. So, email servers are one of the important artifacts or locations that we can look at. So email servers, they process, they store, the information about the emails differently. So the email, server can either have the entire email saved in the logs, or it can just have, the one event saved that, I received this email from this particular SMTP and I forwarded it to the next SMTP server. So depending on the configuration that the user or the, individual organization is using, the amount of data that you can get from the email server will vary. The other thing is there are different type of email servers, like Linux has ton of different mail servers, Windows has different mail servers. So depending on the operating system, the way they store information can also vary. It is also possible that you have some type of encryption, running on the mail server data and so on. So the best way to investigate is that whenever you are investigating any mail server, try to connect with the network administration or network admin, and tell them, give them all the questions, or sit with them and let them do or deal with their own system, and just ask them about the data, and they will try to decrypt it. Or if it is Windows server or a Linux server, they will know how to fetch the data for you. So first, let's just examine the emails, the Unix-based mail servers. So there are basically several mail servers that you can use, but two of them are most common. The first one is Postfix, and the second is SendMail. So these are the common ones that you find in a lot of the cases. So for SendMail, these are the couple of files that are important for us. So etc mail sendmail.cf. This is actually the configurational file of the mail server. So all the email related configuration, that you want to do, whether to like store the entire email, or just don't store the email, just store the log of the event, or how long in past you want to store the emails, or all other email related things or configurational stuff can be found here in the sendmail.cf. Similarly, there is another configuration file which is ets syslogs.conf. So this is another configurational file which is related to the configuration of the server. Now the main email related files could be found here in this directory in Linux, which is var/mail. So if you guys remember, this var directory is for like for storing the data that can vary in length. So since mails can vary in length, like you can have different sizes of different size logs. So that's why we place it into the variable directory. So where.mail, this will contain all the information related to email. If you have configured your mail server such that it stores the entire copies of email, then you will see entire copies of email in this folder. Otherwise, you may see some log files that will just highlight or indicate the individual events. So for postfix, this is the main process or configuration, which is etc postfix master.cf. So if you guys, go into your Linux, you might find this if you have, configured a mail server on your machines. And this is the control process of basically postfix, which contain, or all the information about how the mail server will run. Next, we have this main.cf CF file, postfix main.cf. So this is your main, mail transfer agent configuration file. So it will have all the, data of, the configurational data about the mail server, like what to do or how to process an email. It will tell the mail server. Then we have this spool. In the spool folder, we will have, where spool/postfix. So if you have configured to store the emails, all of them, they will be stored in this particular location, where spool postfix, right? And the basic email configurational data will be stored at syslogs. Again, syslogs is common for both of them. So all the email servers on Linux, they will have some configurational settings in this, and they will have their own configuration as well. And then, the email content for the postfix, it can be found here, where spool postfix. And for the send mail, it could be found in this where/mail directory on your Linux system. Here are some other bunch of email servers. So Exim, Qmail, Put, Alpine. So all of these, they are like, tons of other email server services as well on Linux that you can use. So if we talk about the Windows or Microsoft mail servers, so Microsoft uses the mail server, data in the form of Exchange database, or, like EDB files. And these EDB files, Microsoft contains, or, keeps a extensible storage engine. So there's, just like SQL engine, there is a extensible storage engine, ESC, installed on your machine, Windows machine, that holds EDB files, database files, in order to have the configurational data as well as the email related data. So if you are like, if your client, or if you want to investigate the server logs of a Microsoft email server, then you have to look for the .edb files on the machine. So one way to do that is you can use PowerShell. So here is a link on how to, like analyze the server logs of Microsoft email servers. So this is like kind of summarizes. So for Linux, we discussed two mail servers, Postfix and SendMail. So in SendMail, mail related information like the individual emails, they can be found at where.mail. And in case of postfix, they can be found at where/spool/postfix. Similarly, for Windows, if you are investigating a Windows mail server, try to copy or get all the EDB files, because these are the files that have information about the mail server. or like configurational files about the mail server. Also check checkpoint files and the temporary files. So in every window you will see a temporary file folder in C that contains all the temporary information. So there is a high chance that your emails that a user might be sending or might have passed through this mail server, they will be here in the temporary files. All right. So these are special tools that you can do or use for email investigation. So probably we'll be doing a lab on the email forensic investigation as well. So you guys will be using FTK Imager in order to solve that. So I will do that in probably next week. So the next part of the lecture is about social networks. So what social networks are, what type of crimes can be done on social networks, and how we can investigate those things. So social media sites, you all know there are a ton of them. Important ones are, we have Twitter, now called X, we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, YouTube, Meta, or Meta is okay, Facebook. We have Reddit, and so many more. So what type of evidence can we obtain from these social media websites? So this is a bunch of the different type of evidences. So the first thing is cyberbullying is very common. So we can see or find investigate a lot of cyberbullying cases if we investigate or do some analysis using the social media. Hate speech is another very common crime that we see a lot of the time on social media. So it can be racial or religious or ethnicity based hate speeches or whatsoever. Disinformation, like earth is flat and moon landing and all those controversial issues. So there could be a lot of disinformation spreading on social media. Then like you can also figure out about the opinion of any company or any individual user on any world event. So for example, if we just take the example of flat earth. So maybe some users, they basically believe in that and they are propagating that information, making it clear through their posts. Similarly, some companies maybe say Pepsi says that we endorse the flat earth society, or like we endorse the idea of flat earth. So the sentiments, or you can say the opinions or position, moral position of different users and companies related to different issues, that can be found in social media as well. Similarly, your concerns as users, for example, global warming, you can see a lot of posts related to global warming showing like concern sentiments, or bad feelings about global warming. So you can find out that time schedule of a user. You may find that people maybe on LinkedIn advertise that I will be attending this conference, or I will be attending this meeting, and I will be attending this event, and so on. So the timetable or schedule of a person can also be found on the social media. So all of these things, evidences of crimes and things related to different people, both sentiments as well as their schedule, you can find on social media. Now, when it comes to analysis of social media, there are a bunch of challenges. So the major challenge in social media, is authenticating a post to a legitimate person. So you see a lot of bot accounts on these social media websites, right? Similarly, people create fake accounts as well. So maybe you can, if you just search, say Trump or any other well-known figure, you will find that a lot of people, they use the photo of a famous person or the name of a famous person in order to create a email address or a social media account, and then they start posting their own information or stuff that they like. So if you see any email from, say, Kasim, like I'm going to take my example, that there's an account on Twitter that has my name, my like photo and all that, and it is spreading some disinformation related to anything. So now, if you want to, prosecute me, then you will have to, as a forensic investigator or as a law enforcement agent or lawyer, prove that that account belongs to me. And in this world where we have, like billions and billions of social media account, it is very difficult to pinpoint or, like match a social media account with the actual user. The other problem or other challenge in social media analysis is the huge data volume. So all of there are millions or even say billions of users of these social media websites, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, millions of people over there. So the data that you have to go through, or the amount of data is huge. So even if we want to do search on the photos or images or one post, we might see that hundreds of people liked that post or shared that post. So in order to find the originator, that who originated that post, might become difficult. The next thing is multiple jurisdictions. So it is possible, in social media, anybody from anywhere can make a post. So if, like some person, let's say in Australia, is, making a post on Twitter threatening me here in USA. So now you guys can see that, these two things, the actual crime happening, or, like the where the crime is reported, is two different continents. So right, so I am sitting in US, I will report it to US authorities. Then for US authorities, it is very difficult to investigate that person in sitting in Australia. So these jurisdiction boundaries, since they can be across different cities, across different countries, even across different continents. So this also is a big challenge when we talk about social media network forensics. The next thing is, like, most of the owners of the social media sites as well, such as Twitter, like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Reddit, and so on, they will not easily give you the data. So for example, if I am investigating a case related to post on Facebook, it will be very difficult for me as a forensic investigator to get the data from Facebook, because all of these websites, they want to keep the data of their users private, or like they don't want to public their data. So if I want to get the data, I would have to like legally request Twitter or Facebook in order to give me the data of any particular user. All of these companies, they have their own policies when it comes to the amount of information or data that they can share. So it's you can say like a huge time taking and resource consuming task, legally speaking, in order to get the data from these websites. So what you can do, if you can't get the data from the website itself or the owner of the website, you can resort to the old ways or the back ways, which is working undercover. So if you want to, like, there's a group on social media, say Facebook, that is basically just like propagating they want to do some type of like harm to some people, or they are like racist, or they are like doing hate speech. Now if, as an investigator, I want to investigate that group and figure out that who are the people behind that, one way I can do that is going undercover. So what I can do in this case is I can create a fake profile using a fake email ID, and then I will try to infiltrate in that particular, say, Facebook group or that Twitter group. I don't know whether Twitter has groups or not, but let's say that Facebook group. All right. So once you do that, what are the advantages? What I can get? So once I am part of that group, maybe if they hold any sessions, or if they want to hold a meeting, I will be able to get the time and schedule of that meeting. Maybe if I become friends with other group members, maybe they share their real names or real locations or contact number with me, and so on. So what are the tools that you need to do that? First is we need like a fake email or a temporary email. There are tons of websites on internet that you can use. One of them is Gorilla Mail. So just like use this link, or just type temporary email or fake email in Google, and you will see tons of different websites that provide you that facility. Now, if I want to share some information, Pirate Bay, tons of, again, different website, torrent websites or cloud servers that you can use in order to share, sell, buy stolen information. Then in order to identify people, there are a couple of sources. So one is people.pipl.com. So this can help us finding the person behind the actual like account. So let me show you guys here how it looks like. So this is the interface of people.com. It is a paid service, but like you can find out the identity of a person online. All right. So the next thing is there is also another website which is called like BRP Publications. So this is their web address, www.brppub.com. So this is how it looks. So this is a website that contains the public records of all the people in United States, right? So you can see at the interface right here, you can search by the first name, last name, city, and the country, and you can also search for different type of records as well. So public records, criminal records, background, birth and date, marriage and divorce, and they have like this beautiful simple interface that you can use. So if we go here, let's see if we have for Michigan, then you can like find out all the records. So now we have narrowed it down to Michigan, so birth, date, all that. You have all these counties, so like you can look for the Allendale County or whatever county you want. So these are the websites that you can use, like create a fake email, infiltrate in a group, pretend somebody else, try to get information from there. Otherwise, you can use websites like people.com to find the identity of the person behind an email address or a Facebook account or something like that. It is a paid service. You can find out about the contexts or like sorry, the public records as well. Public record, date record, birth record, divorce record, and all of those things. So some companies, social media companies like Twitter, they also provide, you with the data as well. So for example, since most of you guys who have worked in big data or machine learning, you might know that Twitter has an API from which you can download the anonymous emails. Like, they don't give you the complete information about the user and the tweet that they sent, but you can actually get the tweet contents as well. So they have a dedicated API for that. And if you go there, you can download data up to 7 days in the past. So most of the companies, marketing companies, like other companies, they do all their machine learning and data analysis, most of it using Twitter. So you can, like if you want to find out what people say about the upcoming US elections, you can just go on Twitter, use their API, download the data prior to 7 days, and then try to do sentimental analysis or political sentiment analysis or whatever you want to do. So this is another thing. The next thing is how you can process that large amount of data. So there are different websites, different languages that you can use. So Python has very good support for big data analysis. There is another language that you can use, which is called R. So you can use R as well. So both Python and R, they have tons of different machine learning and data sciences related algorithms, also like natural language processing related algorithms and stuff that you can use in order to extract the information from Twitter. Here are some examples. So like if you are doing some type of natural language processing analysis, you can look at the word frequencies, download the Twitter last tweets from last 7 days and do this type of analysis. You can also, here's another example, sentiment score for Trump related tweets. So you can see here somebody did this analysis using Twitter data. So you have sentiments over here and count over here, and you can see a lot of people, like 150 people in this data. They trust the information that they see in tweets. Similarly, you can also do like geolocation based analysis as well. So you can see that from where that tweet is originating, or in which state people are talking more about elections or Trump, and in which states people are talking less. So all these different type of analysis, you can do them on the Twitter data, and they can help you in order to like probably stop a crime, or they can also help you to get a general idea of the social media space. So this is all for this week. If you guys have any questions related to email forensics, anything, please feel free to get in contact with me. You can send me a message via LMS or Blackboard, and you can also directly email me as well.